Hey folks, we are going to look at two color printing today. So here I have a two color design in Tinkercad, and these look the same, but they are not. So if I look at this shape here on the right, and I grab one of these orange cylinders and move it aside, we can see that this red block, in fact, is solid. And so when I put them back together, really all you're seeing is a little bit of orange, tiny amount that's sticking outside of the block. So kind of right now, there's two solids overlapping. That doesn't really work in the real world, right? On the other hand, this one on the left, if I take this orange cylinder and move it aside, you can see that in fact, it's just sitting exactly inside the hole in the red block. So if I were to envision this in the real world, it would be more like these cylinders are put into these holes in the red block, right? They're filling in spaces that are otherwise empty, whereas this one, we have overlapping solids. So this is important because this one on the left, your 3D printer will know what to do with. This one on the right, how do you put a solid inside a solid? That's not really going to work out. So we're going to focus on this one on the left. And so here's what we do. We choose, I have them color coded already. So maybe I will have the red block first. And you can see that I only chose the red block, not the orange cylinders, right? So just the red block. Now I go to export. And you see this option, it says, I only want to export the selected shape. So instead of the whole design, I'm going to take just the selected shape, and then I'll choose STL, and it will do a download. Okay, so there's one. And then for the second, I'm going to choose this cylinder, hold down Shift, and choose this cylinder. And so now if I move them around, you can see I have those two together. And now when I hit export, it says I can either take everything in the design or only the selected two shapes. Well, I only want those two shapes. So now I'm going to click STL and we'll get another download. So I did this earlier and renamed them so they'll be easier to see, but here they are in my downloads. So two color demo part 1, two color demo part 2. So those are my two different pieces. Okay. So now I'm going to go to FlashPrint. So this is our software for getting our prints ready. I've already set it up for the Creator Pro #1 by choosing the machine down here in the corner. So if you have something else, you could choose a different machine. And now one important thing for two color printing is we need to go to File and Preferences. And here where it says auto layout newly imported model, I want to say no. By default, this will be on yes. And what that does is it will drop the object onto the platform and try and line it up with whatever else is there, or lay it out so that they can print separately. And while a lot of times that's really handy, we want to kind of overlap our shapes and make them fit inside one another. So we do not want them to auto layout. I'm going to say okay. And now I'm going to go to the model section up here and bring in new models. So I'll bring in part 1 first and say open. And so here's part 1. And I could, for example, center that. Well, maybe not yet. And now I'm going to bring in the other one. Here's part 2. And I'm going to say open. And so it's going to give us this warning. The model is off the platform. Do you want to put it on the platform? So if I said yes, it would drop to the platform and no longer be aligned with my shape. Okay, so I'm going to say no. And we can see now that it brought in my two models, which are separate, but one right on top of the other, so they fit together now. So if I click off, you can't even see that there's two models there because they fit together perfectly. Okay. So now I need to assign them to the two different print heads. So I can, whatever colors you have assigned to one side or the other, that's how you're going to decide which one to click on. So I'm going to click on this one. Now I'm going to right click on my mouse and I will assign that one to the left extruder. That's where it already was. And now I'll click on the other model, right click and I'll assign that one to the right extruder. And so now, as I create this print file, it knows that I want the block everywhere you see green to be on one print head, and these cylinders everywhere you see that kind of gray color to be on the other print head. This model doesn't need any support, so I'm going to skip that part and click Start Slicing. And I'll just do it on basic right now. So standard is fine. Auto match, I don't even have any supports, so that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and hit slice. Models are off the platform. Yes, I know they're off the platform. Thank you for reminding me, software, but yes, I do. In fact, it's on purpose. So add a wall or not. This is where I'm going to show you what it looks like. I recommend yes when you're doing 2-color printing, yes to a wall. It will use up more filament, and you'll see in the slicing software what it looks like, but it actually prints a physical wall around the whole object. But the reason is to make the color switching not kind of drip one color into the next. It basically wipes off the print head and makes it look a lot better. So I would say yes. A raft or brim is often suggested. Sometimes I do it without, but I actually think it's a good job. So a raft, if you have a curved bottom object, I have a nice flat bottomed object, so I'm going to add a brim. So it's doing the slicing. Okay, and then I should be able to hit preview, and you can see this wall around the outside that it created. It'll actually be a 2-color wall because it'll do one in one color and one in the other color. And then this down at the bottom, that's the brim. So the wall has something to stick to. And then as we go down, you can see that it has kind of 2 different sets of shapes in there, right? So there's the cylinder that exists inside the block. So that's going to be the one that's in the other color. There you go. And I could just save this and take it over and print. The taking it over and printing part is exactly the same. So I'm actually going to do the exact same models. I'm going to switch the machine type here real quick, just because the visualizer for the Creator Pro 2 is a little nicer and might give you a good idea of what this would look like as it happens. Okay, so here is our slicer. We can see a little bit better kind of what's happening. You can see the walls changing color right there. See that? As it goes up, you have kind of one print head is doing this outside part and the other print head is doing this inside part. I just like the visualizer on the Pro 2 a little bit better. There you go. Okay, but that's what it's going to look like in both cases. So when you are all done, you'll have this box in one color and these embedded cylinders in another. That's all there is to it. Enjoy.